Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. After solving a couple of technical issues, I'm really happy that we are kicking off this discussion here. Once again, welcome to our Atos DE&I Summit for 2025, which we have created under the theme of Powering Forward Together. I am Larissa Doria Teterkan, and I'm the Global Diversity Leader for Atos Tech Foundation business side of the house, to say like that. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today. At this session, which we have titled Prioritizing DE&I, Meeting Ambitious Customer Expectation in a Rapidly Changing World. I have two distinguished guests with me, which I will introduce in a second. And to kick off the session, I would like to add a few words about the video or about how we started the day. And for those of you who did not saw it yet, we kicked off the day with a video of our executive sponsor, Clay Van Doren, who have introduced the day, who introduced the topics that we are going to discuss. And as you've seen, the day is in several sessions, some of them streamed live, some of them internally. As mentioned, Larissa Doria Teterkan is my name, and I'm a white woman in my 40s with light brown hair, normally also wearing glasses, but today without them. And I'm dressed in a blue light dress with some flowers today. So before we go into the session, let me introduce my esteemed guest, and I will start with you, Rachel. Rachel Collins, welcome to the session, and thank you so much for accepting being part of the discussion today. Rachel, I will hand over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for having me today. My name is Rachel Collins. I'm head of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion at Colt. I'm a white woman with light brown hair as well, and I'm wearing a blue top with a red trim. I'm really happy to be here and talk about this extremely important topic.
Thank you, Rachel. Neil, and of course to you, Neil.
Neil Merkin, I'm the Global Head of Accessibility and Digital Inclusion here at Atos. I'm a middle-aged white male with brownish hair and a close-cropped beard, wearing a brownish jacket. I'm really digging the brown theme today, and I am very happy to be here and talk about this topic too. It's an important one for me and for business in general.
Excellent. Once again, Rachel, Neil, for being here. So maybe a few words about the session today before we jump into the discussion. I have a lot of questions that I would like us to tackle together. But about the session today, we know already that we are navigating a fast-changing world in which all the organizations are facing tight budgets, are facing economical challenges, shifting priorities, and in the same time, ambitious customers' expectations, which I'm looking forward to hear also from you, Rachel. Yet, in all these challenges, maintaining diversity, equity, and inclusion in our agenda is extremely important. Not only because it's a business imperative, but because it supports us being more innovative, being more creative, also creating teams which are more stronger and more resilient. So in today's session, we will tackle all this topic. We will discuss about strategies on how we can sustain DE&I on the agenda. We can talk about leadership and how important is that each of us can contribute to the initiatives. And of course, we will not forget about technology, because the role of technology in driving meaningful and inclusive change is super important. But let's also begin with a few questions, and I would like to let the audience know that they are invited to be part of this discussion and that they can address their questions. We will do our best to tackle as many of them possible closer to the end of the session. And if we start diving in, Rachel, I have a question for you, and that is about key factors. And from your perspective, what do you think that are the key factors that are driving this need to keep D&I on the agenda? And also, how can businesses navigate all these financial challenges, pressures that we have, and still maintaining focus on inclusion, on equity, and diversity?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So I think there are numerous factors, but I think the main ones are obviously there are financial challenges. And anything that might be seen as a nice to have is often one of the first things to go in a corporate environment. There are political challenges. You know, there's a landscape where DEI backlash is being encouraged. And there are just so many competing priorities. I think organizations that are really clear on why they are undertaking DEI programs are able to more readily make them sustainable and keep them as a priority. So I think when you really understand your why as an organization, you know, so for us at Colt, it's really clearly linked to our corporate values. It's really, really linked to our customer alignment. And the fact is that we've done research to understand the preferences of our customers and DIOs within when they're making purchasing decisions. So it's about really linking it to your strategy in order to make it sustainable. I think when it's an add-on, that's when it's really difficult to sustain it and keep it at the top of the agenda.
Thank you, Rachel. And I like a lot this aspect of understanding why is important. And I think it's also important to understand what our customers are expecting from us. And Neil, you are facing a lot of our customers, and you are seeing that their expectations are changing, are increasing, especially when it comes to accessibility and digital inclusion. And these facts are also reshaping their business priorities. So how do you see these changes influencing the way organizations are approaching D&I with focus on accessibility, digital inclusion? What do you see in your discussions with the customers?
I think there's been an increasing awareness of the benefits of accessibility for individuals and also for organizations in terms of effectiveness, reducing employee churn, absence, etc. So from a purely financial point of view, what we're doing here and what customers are asking for is for us to help them get a return on the investment on accessibility and a return on investment on the initiatives to include people, because actually it's quite well documented that the money that you spend on accessibility, whether that be through grants from government or from investments from organizations themselves, that there's a 1.2 to a 2 times return on that investment. So if you think about the things that companies invest in normally, a 20% return is really pretty good. 100% return is amazing. So so there's that understanding that this is not something performative, and I think there has been a change from organizations looking at what are the pragmatic and practical things that can be done. So I think, you know, there's less in the way of virtue signaling and more in the way of, well, how can we actually, you know, help our employees and our customers get the best out of our product? How can we reach the widest audience? And then the other drivers are quite simply, there are regulations and laws that require us and require our clients to do this, and those then filter through into the demands from our customer base to deliver these things. So the environment is changing, and I think it really is much more built in rather than bolt on than it used to be.
Neil and Rachel, we are working together, right? So Call Technology Services, it's one of our customers. Maybe Neil, you can share a bit of what we are providing, and then Rachel, would be really interesting to hear your experience and also with us, and also how do you see our shared values? What do you expect from ourselves?
Yeah, so it's actually a two-way relationship. We're a partner with Colt, and Colt provide us with services, and that was where it started. So and what we did was we turned a supplier relationship into a customer one through the fact that we were having these discussions around knowledge sharing on DE&I and accessibility, and through that, we Rachel and I came to know each other, and we've been doing a bunch of work helping Colt in terms of accessibility strategy and understanding, so on, and that's enabled Rachel, and I'll let Rachel tell you about developing her sort of multi-year plan for accessibility.
Yeah, I think I first reached out to pick your brain. And it went from there. And, obviously Neil is so well respected and known in the accessibility world. So I was working on our first accessibility strategy and reached out and realized that actually Atos was in a great position to support Colt on this. So we first started with a maturity modeling exercise to really understand the current state of accessibility across Colt, and where our gaps were and where there were some quick wins. And doing that piece of work with Neil and the team really helped me to then build a multi-year strategy for improvement. So that piece of work, I can't remember now whether it was 22, 23, but we launched the accessibility we launched it in June 2023, so we're 18 months in, and couldn't have developed that and got the buy-in without the support of the team, and then we collaborate on key elements of that strategy as well. So for instance, latest piece of work we're collaborating on is really understanding some of the current accessibility tools and resources that we already have in Colt and making the most of them, particularly with regards to Microsoft 365. So yeah, Neil and team have such knowledge of that. So it's been great because that relationship is really, I think, built on some really shared values, shared goals, and lots of synergies, but also ability to see things from a different perspective, because slightly different organizations as well. So it just works really well. It's been really helpful.
I'm very happy that you're happy with us and the team, and a shout out to my colleague Ricardo, who's done a lot of the heavy lifting. So the maturity modeling approach, I think, is an important one. It's one that we encourage our partners and clients to go through, because it helps identify stakeholders who are the key people to have in the conversations. And that's not just people whose doors we can go and knock on and ask for money. It's also about understanding what makes the organization tick, helping understand what the core organizational values are as well, and then that then helps you work out your strategic plans, because every organization is different. Our organization is different from Rachel's organization, and so the approach needs to be slightly different. There are commonalities, but there's also the alignment with corporate cultures and the strategies and the stated ambitions of the organization. And if we don't listen, and the maturity modeling exercise is predominantly, first off, an exercise in listening, and understanding, then if we don't listen, we don't really get into the psyche of the organization, and it's through the alignment with the values and the management strategy of organizations that really enables us to build something in and make robust and not be performative about it. The stuff that we're doing here is really nuts and bolts. It's really trying to embed this into the day-to-day practices of organizations.
Yeah, I really feel that what's been helpful is, sometimes you work with a supplier and they are, they have a very, fixed idea of this is how it needs to be done. Whereas I think what you've done is help us work out how it will work for Coll as well. And I think because we are partners and the organization, that helps. So yeah.
Rachel, Neil, you pointed out on two important aspects. First, you said we had the support of the team. And I think when it comes to DE&I, it's extremely important to, of course, have on one hand, our leadership is really, at the end of the day, a cornerstone of sustaining DE&I initiatives when it comes to times where we struggle with budgets and some shifting priorities. But more than that, I strongly believe that also the involvement of our employees in DE&I initiatives, be that we talk about accessibility or be that we talk about digital inclusion, it's really important. And I come back to the point that you had, Neil, listening. So I would like to discuss a bit around this aspect of how we can build some strategies that are helping us maintaining the momentum, be it with our employees, be it with our customers, and with our leaders. What do you think about this, Rachel?
You're muted.
You are on mute, Rachel. You need to unmute.
Sorry. Do you mind just repeating that again, that question?
No, of course, I repeat it. So coming back to the leadership and to the fact that is a cornerstone in sustaining DE&I initiatives, especially when we have these challenges with tight budgets. What do you see as most critical strategies that can help maintaining momentum when it comes to DE&I?
I think one of the key things is having the leaders involved in making decisions around DI and actually leading the charge, because unless you do that, then again, it's seen as something that you've got a core central team over here and their responsibility to fix it, whether that's the DEI team or the HR team or the ESG team. What you don't want is this idea that they're going to fix it. The center of gravity is over here. It needs to be embedded as a collective responsibility and a collective accountability. So, we have our leaders as part of our steerco with regards to DEI. We also have launched a separate accessibility steering committee. Obviously those are so closely linked, but we want to go deeper into the accessibility piece. So it's really about getting everybody involved and really understanding their role, but also being really data driven. I think really data driven and using that data to show how the impact is really making a difference, and show milestones and keep communicating that along the way as well. So I think there's a huge communications piece, storytelling, as well as the business case. So yeah, I think it's a combination of things.
Yeah, and I think around the storytelling, and Neil, I will hand over also to you to bring your thoughts. I also believe it's very important to share the success stories that we have. So, for example, if we have achieved a milestone around the strategy, if we are using successfully a certain tool which can support our employees and we are more accessible. Yeah, so I think it's really important to show through this storytelling the successes and the benefits that are raising from that specific milestone. So Neil, what are your thoughts here?
So, like with Rachel, I think getting leaders involved is really important. So when we're having events, inviting leaders to participate, to be able to show their engagement, and that also sends a signal internally and externally, that people are really engaged. That it's not just again lip service, and I think then also, like you said, celebrating wins is really important, and elevating the voices of employees and other people that are doing the work on a daily basis. So we have a lot of stuff going on within our ERGs, ADAPT being the one focused on disability, where we have roundtable sessions. They're open to everyone. It's giving people a voice and allowing other people to see that they're not alone in this. So we're creating this community within the organization. And in tough times, you need to have that sense of community and shared purpose within an organization to really sort of pull through and to be able to deal with the challenges of the economic and business environment. So I think that those things are really key. And then as Rachel was mentioning, being data driven, being able to present the data in a way where you're able to show the return on investment. Now some of that on internal programs is going to be based on savings and organizational effectiveness, but also with my other hat on, we're selling services to clients and showing that accessibility is making money, but also contributing to the success of us winning new customers and clients and so on. And that's really important, because by doing that and by showing that this is something that our client base value, that then becomes something that is really important for executives as well. And this will echo with Rachel, because they're Coulter's selling services as well, and I'm sure that Coulter seeing demand from their client base for the same kind of clear leadership on these topics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I am seeing some questions which are coming from the chat. I will take the first one, and I'm sure Neil, you will love this one. But of course, Rachel, it will be also great to hear your thoughts on it. So, Neil, someone would like to understand a bit better, how can technology be leveraged to promote inclusion and sustain DE&I efforts, especially when resources are limited?
Oh, okay. So yes, as a technologist, I've always liked to find ways to use tech to be effective. Assistive technology enables employees to be effective. I could not do the work that I do without technology. I would be less effective. We're now in the age of AI. It's very exciting for me, as someone that's dyslexic and ADHD, because actually some of these AI tools that we're now getting embedded in our day-to-day working experience are the first new assistive technologies that I've had in 2.5 decades of working in the space. So those are great, but I think that also we can use some of the communications capabilities of the tools that we have to be more effective in getting our messages out there. A few years ago, we wouldn't be able to pull together something like this and live stream it to multiple different technology platforms, out to LinkedIn, internally on Teams, etc. there's an element of efficiency in that, enabling us to do stuff rather than, you know, having small in-person meetings. It's not that those don't matter, because they do, but technology enables us to do things like that. And then also, you know, when we're looking at things like compliance, and compliance is an issue, particularly around disability, accessibility, etc., because there are non-discrimination laws and technical requirements and so on. Using things like, we've been building a project called Reggie, which is a regulatory compliance bot for accessibility and disability laws. 300 plus laws that we've identified in the 70 countries that we work in. How can anyone know all of these? Well, this is where technology can help. Yes, we've got a couple of fantastic legal counsels working on this, but they're two people. Whereas a chatbot interface enables everybody to have access to that knowledge, so long as we have the human in the loop to be able to verify it and make sure that the content is right. Using these technologies can enable us to be more efficient. You know, instead of having an army of legal advisors, we've got a couple in tandem with generative AI and using large language models. So I think that, yes, it absolutely can enable us to be more efficient, but we can also actually, if you have the business case, you know, you can argue for budget. I don't think that everybody ought to just be hand wringing and say, right, well, there's never going to be any budget for DEI ever again, and we can't do it, and so we're just going to have to make things out of string and glue. There is a real business case for this, especially if you think that it's supporting sales, it's supporting efficiency and everything else. You can make the business case, back that up with data, as Rachel says, and then we really, and the technology can give us data.
Super, thank you, Neil. Rachel, would you like to add something to what Neil mentioned before I pick the next question?
No, I think he covered it fantastically.
Excellent. Then I will pick up the next question, which is in fact for you, Rachel, from one of our participants, and is as follows. What tips would you give for those of us who want to celebrate DE&I success stories with people that may be more cynical about its merit? What do you think leaders can be doing to prioritize DE&I efforts with customers while also being seen to grow the business? So maybe you start with this, and myself and Neil, we will complement a bit.
Absolutely. So it's really important to celebrate success stories, but I think you can't just celebrate success stories as well without really explaining your why. And I'm going to go back to that why. And I don't mean why do companies do DEI in general. I mean your company's specific why. You know, why are you doing DEI? I think that when organizations, like we all know the McKinsey's research that talks about how diverse leadership teams, it improves the bottom line. But you have to find your own data and your own why and your own reasons for pursuing your DEI programs. And actually that's really, I think, the crux of the answer to both questions in a way. So, you know, in terms of leaders prioritizing DEI efforts while also be seen to grow the business, to me, those things are linked. You know, we're in a war for talent. We know that that great talents is hard to find, and actually a really inclusive organization is how you attract great talent. A really inclusive organization is how you have diversity of thought that enables you to be innovative and solve the business challenges, to able to do great things for your customers and really grow the business. So I don't see a focus on DEI and a focus on growing the business as mutually exclusive at all. I see them as really, really linked. And going back to the success stories and about people being cynical, I think it's about being able to win over hearts and minds as well. So being able to explain the logic behind it and the why for your business, as well as the success stories, and also the hearts piece, sharing examples from lived experience, as well as the business case. If that makes sense.
It makes, and I think, Rachel, going a bit back to the studies, I mean, there are clearly numerous studies that are showing that teams that are diverse teams, they are more innovative, more creative, depending on the area they are activating. They have higher rates, for example, for a specific KPIs or something like that. Yeah. So from studies perspective, I think there are a lot of them which prove that having diverse team is a benefit for the company. I also like a lot the aspect of data, and the fact that as organizations we need to understand our data, and we need to see what are the insights that we can draw out of those data to focus our initiatives based on those outcomes. And going back to the question a bit around how we could celebrate our success story, how we could convince colleagues who are a bit more cynical, I would like to go back to your point, Neil, around the business case, because I think once we have seen success and we saw the benefit generated through a business, or it's visible in a business case, people feel more comfortable to go again and say, yes, I have data, it works, at the end of the day. So I think that's also quite important. So Neil, if you want to add something around the questions or to what myself and Rachel mentioned here.
Sure. I mean, I think ultimately, every business is comprised of humans. And if we don't value the humanity of ourselves and our colleagues, then we don't function well as a business. We start creating dysfunction. So it's really important that, as a global company, we're highly diverse, but it's really important that we're inclusive and that we're able to collaborate and work together. And it's really, quite well evidenced that when you build those kind of environments, you build high performing teams. Lots of evidence both internally and externally. And then clearly there's also the fact that when it comes to accessibility, digital inclusion, and the provision of sort of workplace accommodations and adjustments, that there's a huge payback in that, in terms of enabling people to work and removing blockers to things happening. But also just channeling even further down into the sort of disability mindset and why accessibility is a benefit to an organization. Actually, people with disabilities face barriers, right? Some of those we remove because we know about them, we're aware of standards, and we're applying those standards and always trying to improve. But also there's a problem-solving mentality that comes from having to face barriers on a daily basis. So by making sure that we are creating a place that works for people with disabilities or people with long-term health conditions, because lots of people experience situational disabilities as well, and temporary disabilities, that they may not consider themselves to be disabled, but that they find certain things difficult. By enabling people to come forward with these things, to take that problem-solving mentality, what we're doing is we're creating a culture of innovation. And so I'm proud to say that accessibility has been one of the things that has led innovation in the organization. We were the first to do virtual hackathons. We were the we're the first ones sort of applying AI to the legal problem-solving challenges and stuff like this. We reverse engineered some of the things that were blocked in document templates to have an impact at a scale that goes across the breadth of the company. So I think that there are, real things and real values that everybody can see, that we're actually making this a better place, a more attractive place, where we don't just attract talent, but we enable and retain.
Thank you, Neil. Rachel, we have one question from one of our LinkedIn users, which I really love the question, and I think we will have a nice discussion. It's about ERGs, employee resource groups and communities networks. So I will first launch it, and I would like us to discuss a bit. I really love this discussion, or the ERG aspect. So our participant is asking the following: do you have suggestions for how DE&I ERGs can motivate and mobilize leadership to publicly support their ERGs? Besides data-driven ROI arguments, how do you motivate them on a community-based level? What do you think?
Oh, well, so I'm really into our networks and our ERGs, having had a long-term engagement with them. I think that finding the sponsors and finding the human stories is really, really important. So for example, in the UK with Atos Adapt, which is our disability and allies network, we had Rick Robarts as one of our sponsors. He's our SVP, working in sales. But Rick has a personal reason for caring about accessibility. He's the parent of a deaf child, and Rick's signs. And so I think one of the really one of my favorite things that ERG did in the last couple of years was actually they got Rick to produce a video that we put out on LinkedIn, which was completely silent. It was captioned, and he signed, and he was explaining why he was motivated and why it meant so much to him. And I think that the more we can align stuff with people's personal values, you don't have to have that direct connection, but everybody has a degree of connection to these topics. And so the storytelling element is really important here. Rick's story got such amazing reactions, both internally and externally, that it helped in terms of other executives and other senior managers within our organization and elsewhere to think about how they can participate.
Yeah, Rick is one of our leaders who is very supportive and involved, and we have many others. But Rachel, at Colt, how is this with? How do you? What's your strategy around communities, around networks and ERGs?
So each of our employee networks has an executive leadership team sponsor, but they also all have 2 senior leadership sponsors who, and they work together and they do slightly different things. But essentially the SLT sponsors are there really to mentor the network leaders and really help remove blockers whenever they are wanting to run their programs and with their annual goals and plans. And I really agree with what you're saying, Neil, in terms of aligning it with what people are passionate about, because we actually did send out a note asking our senior leaders around which networks they might want to sponsor, but we also asked them, and what are you passionate about? In all of these different areas, what gets you most excited? Where do you think you can add value? So, and I think asking those questions. We also asked, what do you want to learn more about? Because in some cases we knew that there were people that they were quite interested in supporting, for instance, our Disability Accessibility Network, which is known as DAN, our DAN network. But they were a little bit worried that they weren't an expert in disability inclusion, but they actually, you know, really wanted to support and learn more. So we also talked about it in terms of, you know, this is an opportunity to learn more as well. And it's really helped. And the other thing in terms of getting senior people to support and get active in the communities is you know, actually just give them things to do, like delegate upwards. You know, we have got this opportunity, and we need someone to come along and open the session, or, you know, we need someone to join this mentoring program, and don't be afraid to just be really specific with the asks. And then when you do that, then it starts to be more of a collaboration anyway, because then they come back and they realize, actually, that was really, really great to be involved, and it was really fun. I got loads out of that. So I could also do this, you know, but I think in the beginning, just being quite direct can be helpful. Yeah.
Yes, I think we could discuss quite a lot about ERGs, because it's a really important aspect. And Neil, do you have some additional thoughts around ERGs?
Yeah, I talked about executives, but actually the purpose of the ERGs is also to be an honest voice of the employees and tell us, and me too, right, tell where we can improve accessibility, where we can improve on diversity, where it's an opportunity for us to hear stuff that doesn't get into support ticketing systems, that won't get raised in other meetings. So I think that element is extremely important. And then just to echo Rachel's point about being direct with the executives and telling them what you need, that's really important, because if you just keep inviting them to ERG meetings and not give them a direct ask, then their interest will wane. So it's really, you know, think is what do you need from a sponsor? Go and ask that thing, make it happen. And certainly I've seen that happen with our ERGs, where the ideas have come right from the grassroots and then been adopted and implemented because people have understood the benefit for the business.
Yeah, and Neil, just to echo a bit, because I want to add one point. I am a strong supporter of ERGs, and I strongly believe that through ERGs and communities networks, we are listening and hearing our employee voices. I also strongly believe that ERGs are a very good platform, if I can say like that, for each of us to learn. I am part of various networks that we have in the company, and I need to admit that no matter which meetings I join with them, I all the time learn something, be it from our ADAPT network in UK, be it from Pride. All the time you are learning something, and I find it very powerful for me as individual and as person. Yeah. So we are starting to get closer to the end of the meeting, but we still have a couple of minutes. And talking a bit about this, how we can better listen the voices of our employees. I know that there are a lot of mentoring programs for sure. In Atos, we also had a reverse mentoring pilot that we have run last year in a global pilot. First, basically, we were switching the roles between leaders, and leaders became executive mentee, and people from our colleagues from underrepresented groups supported as being mentor. The program got extremely positive feedback. Neil, I know this is very close to your heart also, as is linked with our commitment with Top 500. So, Valuable 500. You want to share a bit about it?
Yeah. So I think that reverse mentoring, there's a Valuable 500 started something called Generation Valuable, which was to elevate young potential leaders and expose them to senior management. And our previous CEO was actually mentoring my accessibility program manager, or being mentored by, rather. And you know, this is great. You know, I managed to drop someone in, have the ear of the CEO, and it also changes perspectives, and had led to then questions being asked, and us being challenged back, because suddenly, you know, there was an awareness there that we needed more, and there was a curiosity there that was probably underlying, but that had then been turned on, that really gave an energy to the stuff that we're doing. So I think that things like reverse mentoring are extremely useful, because it changes the way that people perceive the value of diversity, because they're having those really important one-to-one conversations. Now, in any mentor-mentee relationship, both sides extract value. You know, it's not a one-way thing. So the reverse mentors actually get great value in that they're building up their network. They've got access to senior people, which allows stuff to percolate up more quickly. So I think it's a really useful and valuable initiative.
Rachel, Neil, we are getting closer and closer to the end of the meeting. I just checked. For now, there are no questions or feedbacks from the audience. So really, thank you once again for being with me today to discuss about this important topic, to hear your insights, to hear your tips from all your experience. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts that you would like to add for our audience?
Rachel, you first.
I mean, I would say that, yeah, it can be tough to keep DI, front and centre and on the agenda, and I understand there's lots of concern about that at the moment, but I think that it's something that we absolutely can do. I think that there's lots of negative, press at the moment. But if you look at it, most organisations, all the studies are showing that most organisations are undertaking DEI programs, and actually that wasn't the case even 5 years ago. So we're in a good place in lots of ways. There's still a lot of work to be done. But I think it's important to recognise that actually there's been lots of success with regards to DEI as well over the years, that we have seen impact. Organisations have seen impact, and we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah. I think whilst there may be challenges, I think that there will be continued growth and professionalism in the field, and that it becomes much more business-like and business as usual to be inclusive, and so this becomes about organizational effectiveness. We see it being built in, we see it being embedded into all sorts of areas where it's not about awareness, it's because people are aware now. We've done a lot of the awareness. It's really about then becoming effective. So I think there is a shift between just talking about things and actually implementation. And when you start doing things as an implementation, you're building stuff that is solid, it's sustainable, it's not something that is really then going to change so much with different political climates, because there is really a benefit, so accessibility isn't wasteful, it's efficient, making sure that employees are happy and turning up to work to be effective and so on is profitable. So all of these things, I think, actually bode well for the continued growth and success of inclusive organizations.
Neil, Rachel, thank you once again for being here with us today. It's clear from our discussion that while we have economic challenges, we have shifting priorities, and this can create some or can raise some obstacles. In the same time, they are also really representing opportunities to innovate, to adapt, to deepen our commitment, because at the end of the day, I am sure that everyone wants to work in an organization where they feel fully valued, they can try, they can grow, and they can develop. So we explored today the critical role of leadership, but we also explored the role that each of us can have. We explore how we can maintain the strategies around DE&I on the table. And to our audience, I would also like to thank you for being with us today, for raising the question. And I would also like to encourage them to take the insights from this session today, and of course from the other sessions that will follow, to discuss them with the colleagues, with their team members, with their leaders, and at the end of the day to work together to push forward. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's continue joining also the other session, and enjoy the rest of the day, and for sure looking forward to see you also in other events. Thank you all.
Thank you.